So the first one, solve the following, clearly communicating mathematically each of your steps. Let's pay special attention to clearly communicating mathematically each of your steps. So, and that's incredibly untidy. So, a lot of you are really, getting good at solving these equations. A lot of you are taking it a step further and are sort of mentally solving it in your head and then writing down a solution. So you're looking at this equation and you can see, okay, what value of x makes this true, and then writing down the answer. So you've done the first part, but you've not done the second part. The second part is arguably more important because when these questions become even more difficult, your mental methods will fail you, whereas these written methods will consistently work for more difficult questions. And those of you who achieved high marks in the test did this really well. The presentation of work was a real strong suit amongst a lot of you guys in the test. So let's have a look how you solve this one. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand this bracket. Five times 3x is 15x, and 5 times 4 is 20. Then going to subtract 20 from both sides. Then dividing both sides by 15. At this stage, if you would feel more comfortable doing so, please use the bus stop method for division, but I know this division will equal 3. X equal to 3. So by clearly communicating mathematically, it's really clear what I've done. The first line of working is an expansion of the bracket. The second line is writing that expansion with the equation. The next one is showing the inverse operation. The line after that, which is 15x equals 45, shows us what we have left after that first step inverse operation. The next is division by 15, again, communicating and understanding for the inverse operation. And then the last one is showing a solution. So this is what I mean. The equation's been solved, x equals to 3, but the method and the understanding of your method has been clearly communicated. So any person marking this question, marking this exam paper, would know that you understand the material and would award you full marks for this question. So I really encourage you to do the working as I've done so above. Next one. These are the questions we did briefly for 10 minutes before we did the low stakes quiz, where we're forming an equation, then we're solving it. So again, I was really happy with a lot of you solving the equations, but forming the equations and taking written information from text and converting it into algebra, a bit of a weakness. And I'm considering maybe doing a general algebra workshop, perhaps virtually in the coming weeks, just to address some of these weaker areas. But if we have a full understanding of the algebra, this becomes much easier. So the good news is that once you get your head around this will become a really simple skill. But just a few skills that comprise the foundations of algebra are lacking for a few people, which is fine, and it's good that we've identified it before it becomes a real issue. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm thinking of a number. You can use any algebraic letter to represent this number. I'm going to call it n because n is the first letter of a number. I'm thinking of a number. I'm going to call that n. I'm going to tick that off. I multiply it by 4. So n times 4 is the same as 4n. I'm going to tick that off. I add 7. Tick that off. My result is 43. My result is... So when we perform those operations with our unknown number, that answer is 43, and this was a necessary part for us to find out what that number is. So again, let's tick that one off. Form an equation. So let's tick off form. We've done that part. We've formed the equation. This might get us, if this was a 3-mark exam question, we'd have one of the marks here. And now we, again, just have a 2-step equation, which we're using inverse operations to solve. We're going to subtract 7 from both sides. And then we are dividing both sides by 4. n is 9. We've now solved the equation and we've discovered the original number. These two statements are equivalent. We have solved the equation, we've discovered the original number. In this context, they mean the same thing. And the last one, which is the mathematical thinking question. Again, we are taking information from text and we're applying algebra to it to try and work out an unknown value. This time we are also combining this with perimeter and later on area as well. So this is combining two different topics, which is really useful for you guys to see that these topics aren't distinct and separate from one another. They can be and should be combined. So shown is an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle. What does that mean? So that means that all sides of the triangle are the same length. So just to make that really clear, I'm going to add those labels to my triangle. All sides are the same length. If one of the sides is this, the other two must also be the same. Find an expression for the perimeter of the triangle. So to find a perimeter of any shape, we're adding together all of the sides. 2x plus 2 plus 2x plus 2 plus 2x plus 2. That's the same as 2x plus 2 3 times, which is going to be equal to 6x plus 6. So again, we've found an expression for the perimeter of the triangle. Given any value of x, this would give you the perimeter. So we're then told the perimeter is 42 centimeters. Find out the value of x. We can form an equation now. The expression for the perimeter generally is equal to 42, a specific value. There's a unique solution for x. Let's find out what that is. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. Again, running out of space, I'm just going to narrate the steps. Subtract 6 from both sides. 6x is equal to 36, and then divide both sides by 6. X is equal to 6. And that's solved. The value of x has been found. So here are the questions that were on the feedback sheet. If you guys don't have the feedback sheet and would like a copy in your book or something, either wait till we get back to school and I can fill that out, but I've actually included that in the OneDrive folder. I've included the low stakes quiz for you guys to look over again if you want to redo that quiz, just to make sure you're getting the marks that you may have missed out on. But I've also included a copy of the feedback sticker in case you want a copy of that. But I would I strongly advise you to pause the video now and attempt these questions, and then I'll go over some solutions. All right, let's take a look at some solutions. So first one, we are clearly communicating each of our steps. That's the real focus for this question and the weaker area from the low stakes quiz. So first thing I'm going to do, expand the bracket. Six times 2y plus 6 times 4 is equal to 72. 12y plus 24 is equal to 72. Feel free to use your calculator at this stage, or your written subtraction methods. We're going to subtract 24 from both sides. 12y is equal to 48. Final step, division by 12 of both sides of our equation. Y is equal to 4. So we've solved that, and we've clearly shown our steps mathematically and communicated that to whoever's reading it. So next one, I think of a number. Again, we're going to use n to denote our number. I divide it by 5. I divide it by 5. So taking these off again. I subtract 3. My result is 4. What was my number? So let's use inverse operations once again. First thing, I'm going to add 3 to both sides to eliminate this subtract 3 from the left hand side. The left hand side now tells us that some number n divided by 5 is equal to 7. To find that number, we can use an inverse operation. We're going to multiply both sides by 5. N equals 35. And then the last one, the mathematical thinking one, a bit trickier than the triangle one that I showed you. We're going to form an expression for the perimeter of this rectangle. So before I do that, I'm going to just label these sides of the rectangle. We know parallel sides in rectangles must be equal. If that makes things easier, please feel free to label those missing sides. So form an expression. So perimeter. We have 3x plus 5 plus 2x minus 3 plus 3x plus 5 plus 2x minus 3. Okay, let's collect like terms. How many x's do we have? We have 10x, 3x plus 2x, plus 3x plus 2x is 10x. And then numbers now, or non-algebraic terms, what do we have? We have plus 5, subtract 3, which is 2, plus 5, subtract 3, which is 2. 2 add 2 is 4. So this is an expression for the perimeter of the rectangle, and part I of the question has been completed. If the perimeter is 64, find out what x is. So now we're taking this expression for our perimeter, and we're told that that is actually equal to 64. So we're going to form an equation. First thing I'm doing is subtracting 4 from both sides again because my head's in the way. I'm going to try and squeeze this onto the left. So taking 4 from both sides gives us 10x equals 60. And then finally we're going to divide both sides by 10. X is equal to 6. Okay, before we wrap up, what I have done, so these questions were broadly split into two subcategories within the topic of solving equations. It was equations with brackets and communicating that, and it was forming and solving equations. What I've done is I've created two worksheets. Now these worksheets can be found in the OneDrive area for this lesson, and they're labeled as they are shown on the screen: solving equations with brackets and forming and solving equations. If you guys were having trouble with either of these two topics, I strongly recommend you have a look over the video again, familiarize yourself with the methods, and then attempt the worksheets of questions that respond to your area of greatest need. Otherwise, if you're confident with them, I would still encourage you to try these questions. A few of them get quite difficult, especially the forming equations questions. They get quite difficult and quite interesting, I think. And for both of those sheets, there is also solutions in the OneDrive area for you guys to have a look at and to self-correct work. And then before I sign off, there's also an apply it extension task, which is quite tricky, but again, approaching these more difficult tasks will really mean that when it comes to an exam scenario and you get a less difficult question, it will become really easy. So I really encourage you to try this question. Again, there's some work solutions in there. Taking this a bit further and making us think a bit deeper, but again, using the same skills, and that's going to bring this lesson to a close. Hopefully you found it okay. Hopefully you found it easy enough to follow, and I will look forward to seeing you guys for future lessons. Okay.